Hey everyone, ready to dive in? Ever feel like you're losing yourself a little in a relationship?
Happens to the best of us.
For real.
Yeah.
So, today we're tackling that. How to be you, like fully you, while building a life with someone else.
We got some really interesting research to unpack, too. It's going to be good.
Yeah, we found some seriously insightful tips that I think will really resonate. Ready to jump in?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so this first one, it almost feels too simple, but the research backs it up. Having your own hobbies.
It's funny how the simplest things can be the most profound, right?
It really is. But okay, I have to admit, sometimes I think, hobbies, isn't that what I tell myself I'm doing when I'm actually just scrolling on my phone?
Right? Like my hobby is collecting Instagram likes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure these hobbies are actually, meaningful?
It's all about being intentional. Instead of just passively consuming, ask yourself, what lights me up? What did I love doing as a kid? It could be anything. Painting, writing, bird watching.
Bird watching. There you go, see? I
Hmm.
never would have thought of that.
There's a whole world of fascinating hobbies out there. And here's the thing, when you're engaged in something you genuinely enjoy, you bring that energy back to the relationship. It's like a breath of fresh air.
That makes sense. You're
Yeah.
not relying on your partner for all your happiness and fulfillment.
Precisely. And there's actually research from the Journal of Marriage and Family showing that couples who regularly engage in separate hobbies report higher relationship satisfaction.
Wow, okay, so it's not just me saying it. There's actual science to back it up.
Oh, there's plenty of science. But it makes sense intuitively, right? When you're happy and fulfilled as an individual, you bring a more vibrant version of yourself to the relationship.
It's like you're adding fuel to the fire instead of waiting for it to die out.
I like that. And you know what else adds fuel to the fire?
What's that?
Encouraging each other's growth. And I don't just mean within the relationship.
Right. So we're not just talking about like, you'd be so great at loading the dishwasher this way. More like supporting each other's dreams and aspirations, even if they're outside the relationship.
Exactly. Imagine your partner's eyes light up when you ask about that project they're passionate about. That kind of support is priceless.
Totally. It's about being their biggest cheerleader, even if their dreams take them in a different direction than you expected.
It's about recognizing that growth and change are natural parts of life, both individually and as a couple.
So true. But I'm also thinking, what about the times when supporting a partner's growth requires, I don't know, maybe you picking up more slack at home or making some compromises?
Uh-huh.
Because that can be tough.
Oh, absolutely. It's a two-way street. And sometimes, yeah, it means making sacrifices for the other person's happiness. But here's the thing. Seeing your partner thrive, seeing them genuinely excited about their life, that's incredibly rewarding in itself, wouldn't you say?
Totally agree. It's about the bigger picture of your happiness together.
Exactly. And that sometimes means giving each other space to, actually be individuals.
Okay, so now this next tip, I feel like some people might push back on this a bit.
Yeah.
Spending time apart.
Because it sounds counterintuitive, right? Like if we're trying to build a life together, shouldn't we be spending more time together?
Exactly. That's what I always thought. But the research suggests otherwise. There's this idea of absence makes the heart grow fonder. Have you heard of that?
Oh, for sure. And it's not just some old saying, there's actually truth to it. When we spend too much time together, we can start to take each other for granted. A little space allows us to reconnect with ourselves and come back to the relationship feeling refreshed and appreciative.
It's like recharging your batteries. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. It's not about being joined at the hip. It's about nurturing both your togetherness and your individuality.
Makes sense.
Uh,
And that probably ties into the next tip too, right? Boundaries.
Boundaries. Such a buzzword, but so important.
It feels like everyone's talking about boundaries these days, but what does that actually look like in a relationship?
It boils down to respecting each other's needs and preferences, even when they're different. And most importantly, communicating those needs in a healthy way.
So instead of just saying, I need space, it's about being more specific. Like, hey, I had a crazy day at work. Could we have some quiet time now and maybe catch up later?
Exactly. It's about clear, respectful communication and honoring those differences.
Which leads us perfectly into our final tip, celebrating differences.
Right. Instead of seeing them as obstacles.
Okay, so much to unpack here. I love this one because it flips the script.
Yeah.
We're often conditioned to think that differences equal conflict, but you're saying it's actually the opposite.
Think about it. Wouldn't it be boring if you and your partner were exactly the same?
True. But how do we shift that mindset? How do we go from seeing differences as something to be feared to something to be celebrated?
It starts with curiosity. Instead of getting defensive when your partner disagrees with you, try asking questions.
Yeah.
Try to understand their perspective. you might learn something new.
That's such a good point.
I
It's
think they're
about approaching those conversations with an open mind and a willingness to learn from each other.
exactly. And remember, disagreements are inevitable in any relationship. It's how you handle them that makes all the difference.
Such wise words. It's like
Yeah.
a relationship is a dance, not a fusion, right?
Love that analogy. You got to find that rhythm together, and sometimes that means stepping on each other's toes, but you learn and grow from those missteps.
And you come out stronger in the end. Well, I feel like we've covered so much ground today.
It's amazing how much there is to uncover,
It
right?
really is.
Mm.
So, listener, as we wrap up, we'd love to hear from you. Which of these tips resonated most? What's one small step you can take today to bring a little more you to your relationships?